Welcome back everyone, I'm finally bringing you that OnePlus Nord N10 5G review. Priced very affordably, the N10 5G is a 5G enabled phone, it's in the mid-range price category, and it's got a lot going for it. It is a strong and competitive offering. But how does it truly stack up against the overwhelming amount of other mid-range devices, like the Galaxy A series and the Google Pixel devices? I'll answer that and much more as I go through my long-term experiences with the N10 5G in my review. On the hardware side, this phone almost has it all. For the basics, there's a hole punch cutout display, fingerprint scanner, headphone jack, and the micro SD card slot. There's a quad lens rear camera setup featuring a 64 megapixel main lens, and on the front, we have a 6.5-inch 90Hz display. The Nord N10 5G actually feels very nice in the hand. It's easy to use with one hand, and the only gripe I have about the plastic build is how it inhibits the device's haptics. The vibration motors don't replicate what I think to be is a premium feeling, so I just turned off the haptics, and it's no longer a nuisance. On a more positive note, I cannot understate how beautiful the Midnight Ice color is. It offers a moderately subdued, yet premium look when it reflects light at the right angle. I have unfortunately dropped my N10 5G backside down on the hardwood flooring a couple times these past few months, but as you can see, it still looks pristine. On the inside of the Nord N10 5G, we have 6GB of RAM, 128GB of UFS 2.1 speed storage. No complaints about the storage speed. Given the price point, it is adequate. And for the processor, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 690. This is an octa-core chipset, and it incorporates 2 big Cryo 560 cores and 6 little Cryo 560 cores. On the graphics side, there's an Adreno 619L GPU. Also included is NFC for contactless payments, which is nice. There's support for Bluetooth 5.1, 802.11ac Wi-Fi, and of course, 5G. All of this is powered up by a 4300 mAh battery. Let's talk about the performance of the Nord N10. That Snapdragon 690 struggles in the most demanding game titles when I put it to max settings, though when bumped down to medium, my favorite games become enjoyable on this chipset. Less demanding 3D games or 2D games won't be taxing on the battery either, and with this dual speaker setup, you'll enjoy every minute of that gaming. With my extended use of this device, this much has become apparent. If you're coming to this phone from an older OnePlus flagship like the OnePlus 5 or 6, you're going to be disappointed with how little of an overall upgrade this speed would be. If you are upgrading phones for better battery life, now that I can understand. Even with these specs on the N10 and the 90Hz display, I'm still able to make it through an entire day without needing to charge the phone. I get around 5 hours to 6 hours and 10 minutes of screen on time. The 6.5-inch display is an IPS LCD panel. It has an aspect ratio of 20:9 with an FHD Plus resolution of 1080 by 2400. This gives it a pixel density of 406 ppi. As mentioned, the display panel boasts a high refresh rate of 90 Hz. This is refreshing to see trickle down to a more affordable device from OnePlus. The overall advantage of the additional fluidity can be felt during many tasks I use the phone for. This can be the case of scrolling through a social media feed, playing a game with high refresh rate support, or even just navigating through the OS. The dual speakers I mentioned do get loud, and the audio quality is good for the price in my opinion. The left side of the phone has the volume rockers, and the opposite side has the power button. OnePlus has removed the alert slider, a feature that was a staple since the original OnePlus One. To sort of make up for that omission and to keep their fans happy, OnePlus has packed this with a headphone jack and the micro SD card slot, features that we're not used to seeing on flagships anymore. This slot can expand the phone's storage capacity up to 640GB if the onboard 128 is not enough. It wouldn't have been a proper OnePlus release without some form of fast charging, and this device thankfully continues that legacy by offering Warp Charge 30T. Included in the box, we have the Warp Charge adapter, USB-C cable, SIM tool, and the instructive paperwork. The phone has very slim bezels. There's a hole punch cutout on the front, and aesthetically speaking, something I noticed about this was that there is a bit of a backlight bleed going on around the hole punch cutout camera. This attention to detail should not go unnoticed, as it is a prevalent issue with multiple Samsung phones that I've already checked out. In practice, the front-facing selfie camera works pretty well. I was relieved to see that OnePlus's software processing didn't overdo the skin smoothing. This was a nice change to see in comparison to Samsung's continuation of pushing their beauty modes to the extreme. This 16 megapixel front camera sensor does a stellar job at capturing detail as well. OnePlus has equipped it with 4 rear lenses, 2 of which can better be classified as specialty feature lenses. You have the main 64 megapixel camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens, a 2 megapixel macro lens, and another 2 megapixel lens that is a monochrome lens. I was impressed with the photos coming out of the main camera at the standard focal length. The colors and the captured dynamic range are standout aspects. The main camera also doubles as the telephoto lens. The ultra-wide lens can produce clean images in a well-lit setting. OnePlus's stock camera app inside of Oxygen OS includes a wealth of settings, such as the ultra-wide HDR, portrait and nightscape modes, raw image shooting, as well as pro mode. Now, the simulated portrait blur effect on this phone is entirely done through software, and it's nothing to write home about. On the other hand, one thing and one feature I really did find myself enjoying was the pro mode in the camera settings. The main lens uses electronic stabilization, but the implementation in its current form is poor. There's a noticeable jitter when recording 4K video, and it's unfortunate because it detracts from the otherwise clean output at up to 30 frames per second. There is still hope that they can remedy this with a software update, the way we've seen OnePlus and some other manufacturers do in the past. Slow motion mode also makes an appearance, offering 1080p video at 120 frames per second or 240 frames per second at 720p. Below that quad camera array is the fingerprint scanner. I find it to be placed well, where I can easily reach it on my index finger, but there is nothing positive to say about the actual performance of it at all. In terms of speed, it's not terrible when it works, but the accuracy is just abysmal. It's even further behind the Galaxy A11 and the Galaxy A12 that I reviewed. Thankfully, the N10 5G does have support for the face-registered unlock in the software. You can enable this, and if you're not a huge fan of the fingerprint scanner, this, personally, is my preferred authentication method. If you don't want either biometric, then you can just set them off because they're not mandatory to set up. On a bit of a disappointing note, OnePlus is only committing to one major software update for this phone, bringing it from Oxygen OS 10 to Oxygen OS 11, and when you look at the competition in the mid-range market, that really doesn't cut it for a phone of this price. If you can overlook this con of the software updates, there are strong pros to justify this purchase at this time. OnePlus has managed to create a relatively affordable package with niceties such as speedy fast charging, a 90Hz display, and 5G. When I purchased my N10 on a pre-order, OnePlus also packaged and shipped it with free earbuds too. What do you think about this attempt at cracking the mid-range smartphone market from OnePlus? In my opinion, they did a lot right, but not committing to more software updates kind of kills the whole aspect of future-proofing your phone, and while it is a good deal right now, a year down the line, I'm definitely not going to be saying the same thing. I'm kind of on a roll with these uploads this week so far, and if you want to see the upcoming videos that are, really coming soon, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell turned on. Thanks, my friends. Bye for now.